Found out my girlfriend was with her just a friend Mike, so I exposed her with security cam logs, grabbed the after-hours access log, dropped the folder on the coffee table, and sent the camera still to her practice, and watched her get placed on leave with the dental board notified. Have you ever watched a prank turn into a confession without anyone meaning to confess? That happened to me in Waynesville, North Carolina. It started with a screenshot on our shared tablet that I was never supposed to see. A simple invoice with a deposit amount and one name in bold, Mike. I did not say anything at first. I just stared at the numbers until they stopped looking like a mistake. Then I locked the screen and set the tablet back where I found it. Some truths do not arrive with thunder, they arrive with a quiet click. I'm Garrick Swain, 41, and I splice fiber lines for a rural broadband co-op in the Smokies. I spend my days inside a white service van, breathing resin fumes and listening to a generator hum while I fuse hair-thin strands of glass. One bad connection can drop a whole road offline. That week, my relationship felt like it was dropping in the same way. We lived in Salena's condo on the edge of town, a place with a narrow balcony and a view of fog rolling off the hills. The kitchen always smelled like orange peel soap because she scrubbed the sink like a ritual. A ceiling fan clicked once every rotation, and she refused to admit it. Every Sunday night, she lined up her work badges on the counter like she was preparing for battle. Selena was 39 and worked as a dental hygienist at a private practice in Clyde. Her job came with rules and audits and a strict chain of trust. She was the type to remind me to sign receipts and shred old mail. That's why the invoice screenshot felt so wrong. Here is the thing. When I run a continuity test on a fiber line, I do not guess, I verify. I don't argue with the result, I follow it to the break. That week, I started doing the same with Selena. The invoice didn't say much, just a deposit for a private session for 2. It listed a studio name I recognized because Selena had talked about it before. What made my stomach tighten was the note line that read, "Hold spots for Selena and Mike Berrigan." Mini hook, because this is where your brain tries to protect you by pretending you misread it. I told myself maybe Mike was a coworker, maybe it was a group thing, maybe she needed a friend. But then I remembered the way she had been hiding her screen lately. I remembered how she stepped into the hallway to take calls. I remembered how her friends kept smiling at me like they knew a joke I didn't. 2 nights later, Selena invited me to her friend's place for a relationship game night. She said it like it was harmless. She kissed my cheek and asked if I'd wear the nice flannel she liked. Sweet voice, warm eyes, no warning. On my way out to the van the next morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Selena that was meant for someone else. It flashed across the screen because she had used my phone hotspot the night before and her account was still linked. The preview said, "Tonight is the test. Say it's over, watch his face." I felt my hands go cold. I opened it and realized it wasn't just Selena, it was a whole group chat with her friends. They were planning a breakup test like it was a party trick. That was my communication proof, and it hit harder than the invoice. It wasn't only that she might be hiding Mike. It was that she was willing to humiliate me for fun. Mini hook, because disrespect doesn't always arrive as an insult, sometimes it arrives as entertainment. I waited until she came home from work that evening. She tossed her scrubs in the hamper and started talking about a patient who hated polishing. I asked her straight, "Why are your friends planning a breakup test?" She blinked, smiled, and said, "It's just a joke, don't overthink it." Confrontation 1 ended with her sweetness turning sharp. When I asked why she was in a group chat about testing me, her eyes narrowed. She said, "If you can't handle a joke, that's a you problem." Then she added, "My friends are protective because they care about me." I didn't yell back. Practical advice number 1 is simple. If someone calls cruelty a joke, don't argue about humor, watch the pattern. I nodded and let her think she had smoothed it over. The next day, I checked our joint card app because we used it for groceries and utilities. I didn't dig through her private stuff. I looked at what my name was on, because shared money is shared truth. There it was, the same studio name from the screenshot, and the deposit amount posted as a charge. That was my money proof, and now it had my card tied to it. The entry said, "Deposit, private session, 2 seats." I sat in my van with the heater blowing dry air and felt that quiet click again. A continuity test doesn't care how much you love the line, it tells you if it's broken. When Selna got home, I put the payment on the kitchen counter like a simple question. Confrontation 2 started with me saying, "Why is our card paying for a private session for you and Mike?" She laughed once, like she couldn't believe I said his name. Then she went cold and asked why I was snooping. I told her it wasn't snooping, it was a shared account. She flipped it fast and said I was insecure and controlling and ruining date night. She said Mike was just a friend and the session was a group surprise. The way she said group didn't match the words private session for 2. Mini hook, because here is what people miss. When someone is hiding, they don't answer, they attack the question. Selna was no longer sweet. She was slicing at me with blame. That Friday, my coworker asked me to swing by Selna's dental practice because their internet was dropping. I had installed their new fiber modem months earlier, so I was the go-to guy. I didn't want to go, but work is work. And sometimes work puts you in the exact place you need to see the truth. The practice was quiet after hours, smelling like mint and disinfectant. The lights were off in the waiting room, but the back hallway glowed with a single bulb. The office manager, a tired woman with a tight bun, met me at the door and said they had an issue with their alarm system logs. She said someone had been in the building late and supplies were missing. She led me to a small back office where a printer had been spitting out pages nonstop. On the top page was an alarm access log with times and user codes. There was Selna's code, disarming the system at 1046 p.m. on a night she told me she was asleep. That was my location proof, and I didn't even have to ask for it. The office manager pointed at the page and said, "Do you know why she was here?" I stared at the time and felt my stomach drop in a slow wave. Mini hook, because the truth is worse when it arrives in someone else's hands. Then the office manager pulled up the security camera feed to show me a timestamp. She clicked to the same night, same time. The footage showed Selna letting a man in through the side door, laughing, holding the door open like she was welcoming him home. The man wasn't blurry. He had a dark beanie, a neck tattoo that stood out even in gray footage, and a familiar walk. She handed him a visitor badge and led him down the hallway. A minute later, he reappeared carrying a small box labeled whitening kits. That was my killer receipt, and it was clean, legal, and undeniable. No spying, no sneaking, no guessing. The practice's own camera told the story. The office manager's face went stiff like she was already writing the report in her head. I didn't call Selna right away. I asked the office manager for copies of the access log and the camera stills because she said compliance would need them. I kept my voice steady and did what I always do when a line fails. I document the break, then I plan the repair or the replacement. That night, the game night test happened exactly as planned. Selna drove us to her friend's house in Maggie Valley, acting relaxed, humming along to the radio. Her friends greeted me too loudly like actors warming up. There were snacks on the table, phones casually placed face up, and a weird energy in the room. Selna stood in front of everyone and took a breath like she was about to perform. Then she said, "It's over," with a dramatic pause. Her friends watched me the way people watch a spill, waiting for the mess. I didn't give them the mess they wanted. I smiled once and said the line that had been sitting in my chest for days. "Finally, now I can stop pretending I don't know about you and Mike." The room froze. Someone's mouth stayed open like they forgot how to close it. Selna's face went pale, then hot, then pale again. Mini hook, because this is where a prank becomes a mirror and nobody likes what it shows. One friend tried to laugh and said, "It's a test, it's a joke, calm down." Selna grabbed onto that, turning fast. She said, "See, it's just my friends being silly, you're overreacting." That was deny, right on time. I pulled my folder from my jacket pocket and set it on the coffee table. I didn't slam it, I placed it gently, like proof deserves respect. I said, "You were in your clinic after hours and Mike was with you." Selna shook her head hard and said, "No, that's not what happened." Then she minimized, fast and desperate. She said, "He stopped by, that's it, you're making it weird." She said, "It was one night and it wasn't even a big deal." She said, "My friends are here, don't embarrass me." I slid the access log copy across first. Her friends leaned in despite themselves. Then I slid the camera still, showing her holding the door while Mike walked in. The air changed, like someone turned off the music in a store. Selna's shoulders dropped a fraction and partial admit leaked out. She whispered, "Okay, he came
Then
by."
the emotional
Like
move
that made
hit
it like
small.
a wave. She said the
She started
whitening kits were
crying and
samples,
saying I
and she
ruined
was
her
just
life in
helping
front
a
of her
friend.
friends.
She
She
said
said
I
Mike was
didn't
going
trust
through
her,
a hard
and that
time
was
and
the
she
real
didn't want me to
problem.
judge.
She begged me to leave the folder there so her friends wouldn't see more, like I was the one exposing her. One friend, the loudest one, finally spoke in a small voice. She said, "You told us you wanted to test him because you weren't sure about him." She looked at Selna and added, "But you were the one doing stuff behind his back." That was the kill shot line, and it didn't come from me. Selna snapped at her friend and told her to shut up. Mike's name came up again, and another friend muttered, "Mike is here right now, isn't he?" Selna flinched, and everyone saw it. Minnie Hook, because your body tells the truth before your mouth does. Mike didn't come inside, but he texted Selna, and her phone lit up on the table. A friend glanced and went wide-eyed, then looked away like she'd touched a hot pan. The prank team started to understand they weren't controlling the story anymore. I stood up and said I was done. I didn't threaten, I didn't swear, I didn't plead. I just said, "I'm not a toy for your friends, and I'm not a backup plan while you run around with Mike." Then I walked out into the cold mountain air. I slept that night in a rented room above a closed antique store in Lake Junaluska. The floorboards creaked and the hallway smelled like old wood and dust. I lay there and felt tired in a deep way. A continuity test isn't cruel, it's honest, and honesty can still hurt. The next morning I met an older employment attorney named Halden Price at a late-night taco stand parking lot in Canton. The neon sign buzzed, the oil smell clung to my jacket, and cars hissed past on wet pavement. Halden listened without blinking, like nothing shocked him anymore. He said, "Do not argue with her, separate access, and let her workplace handle the workplace problem." Halden helped me write one clean email to the dental practice owner attaching the log and camera stills the office manager already had. I didn't send it as revenge. I sent it because their supplies were being taken and their system was being misused. That is a difference people forget. The practice owner opened an internal investigation that week. Selna was placed on leave while they reviewed records. The state dental board was notified because after-hours access and inventory misuse can cross into licensing trouble. Her friends stopped posting about tests and started acting like they had never heard of the idea. Mike betrayed her the moment consequences showed up. He sent the practice owner a message saying Selna invited him and told him it was allowed. He claimed he thought the kits were free promotional items and he was misled. Then he vanished, blocking Selna and showing up at the studio like nothing happened. Selna tried to pull me back in with panic. She sent an email with the subject line, "Please don't do this," to my work address because she was blocked on my phone. She said she loved me, and she was scared and she didn't mean it. Minnie Hook, because love that appears only when your reputation is on fire is not the love you needed before the fire. I kept my boundary and kept my job steady. 3 months later, my co-op promoted me to field supervisor, which meant I trained new techs and handled big outages. I told new guys the same thing every time. Run the continuity test. Don't assume the line is good just because you want it to be. Around that time, I met someone named Yara Denholm at a volunteer trail cleanup near Cold Mountain. She was calm and direct, a wildlife rehab coordinator who showed up with gloves, water, and patience. We started talking in a simple way that didn't feel like a performance. With her, silence didn't feel like punishment, it felt like peace. One evening, Yara and I ate at a small ramen counter in Silva, steam fogging the window while snow dusted the sidewalk outside. I watched her laugh at a silly story and felt my shoulders drop for the first time in months. I didn't feel like I was being tested. I felt like I was being chosen. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel.